Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Morgan.
I'm Neal.
Welcome to our home in Atlanta, Georgia. Let us show you around.
Welcome to our newest Homeworthy series called Our First Home, where we meet young lovebirds who are building their first nest together.
Now we're the Taylors.
We're married.
These couples have both charming love stories and lovely homes.
It just feels great to be not only building a home, but building a life together.
So prepare to be swept off your feet by these incredible pairs and the places they call home. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I am Morgan Sandlin, and I own a social media agency called Mo Social in Atlanta, Georgia.
My name is Neal McArthur, and I work in sales for a sports marketing and advertising company.
And welcome to our home. I was kind of house hunting. We weren't engaged yet, and I was looking around, and we had made an offer on one house and didn't end up getting it. And so he was aware that I was serious about the house hunt, and he was on his brother's bachelor party, and this house popped up as a quiet listing. It's a very popular neighborhood. I knew it was probably gonna go fast, and all weekend I was texting him pictures. I went and toured it, and was like, I think, like, if you agree, I think we should put an offer in on this house. He claims to not remember many of those texts or didn't know how serious I was, because
I was just saying, okay, sounds good, like I do 75%.
Yeah, and so I toured it twice over the weekend, and I was like, I really think this is, like, I can see us, like, long-term here. And come Sunday, I was gonna go live on Monday, and I was like, I think we need to do it. And so I told him, I was like, if you're cool with this, like, you know, we can back out during due diligence if you get there and you really don't like it, but we kind of got to move fast. I think we should do it. He says okay again, and is like, sounds great, whatever you want. And then I go pick him up at the airport that night. He gets in the car. They accepted our offer within maybe like 30 minutes, and he gets in the car, and I was like, so I have some news. We got the house. But then when you got here, he went and toured it the next day.
I did. Once I was able to get back and get my brain and body back to normal, I came and looked at it, and outside of the wallpaper that was in a certain area, I really liked it. I mean, the deck was like the selling point for me.
And then we have a little backyard as well where he'll go out there and hit some golf balls. So I imagine in the future we'll spend more time out there once kids come along. But right now it's Neal's little play area. Welcome to our living room. This is where we spend most of our time, except for really in the fall, winter when we need our fireplace. But this room is where I really fell in love with the house during the first tour. It reminded me a lot of the condo that I owned previously, before Neal and I even met for 4 years. And so when I came in, it felt like home naturally, with all of the beautiful thick trim on the walls, natural light. This window is west facing, so we get really great afternoon sun. And I believe I toured it actually during the afternoon, and so I just fell in love with everything about it. And it's really cozy. It's not too big of a space, but luckily I knew that my furniture from my condo was gonna fit in here absolutely perfectly. So I have actually the exact furniture. This is pretty much a plug and play. So when I first moved in here, literally the first week, everyone was kind of like, looks like you've lived there for 6 years. And it was pretty much because when I moved in, I was like, when I toured it, I knew that it was gonna fit everything perfectly. And that was one of the things that I really loved about it, because I knew I wasn't gonna have to search for all of the pieces that I would love again, and know that at least one room would feel like home right away for us. So starting kind of with the sofa over here, this was funny enough, I think a lot of other people's first big girl purchases are maybe a car or something of that sort, but this was my first big girl purchase. I splurged a little bit on it, and it is absolutely the most comfortable sofa in the world. In my condo, which was quite small, it was the perfect place for people to essentially sleep on. It was like a twin size bed. So it's been along for the ride, and really, really love it. It's also a really simple piece to obviously design around, which is what I really love. I like having my big pieces to be really neutral so that then I can really find pieces like our cheetah print rug that would look maybe a little bit crazy with a lot of color in here. But this rug actually feels quite neutral to me because of all of the other elements that are around it. And then of course have tied it in with some greens to kind of bring in my favorite color. And a recent addition to this room has kind of been a pop of a light pink, which I never really gravitated towards pink, but when I found these on Cherished, actually, I knew this wall, having a sofa on a white wall really overwhelmed me, to be honest, because this sofa sat in the middle of my living room in my condo and never really had a style behind it. And because we have this beautiful window on this side, I wanted to be able to look out from the sofa, and I found these and they were the perfect size, and they're also very my style, which is the botanical look. And so I was immediately drawn to them, ordered them, they looked great. So from there, I've become a pink girl, and we have our pink dried hydrangeas, which everyone always loves in this room. I love flowers, but I found myself spending a fortune on flowers, and Neal started to notice. And so this has been a really great transition for me to lean into kind of the dried florals and obviously plants as well, which you'll see kind of scattered throughout the house, because they live a lot longer than some fresh blooms. So now we try to limit ourselves to farmers market blooms when we do go, and keep at least something to make the room feel really lively. Moving on to this side of the room, which this window, like I said, was one of the reasons I fell in love with this space. My old condo had just a wall of windows. And so I got really, really accustomed to natural light in my house. And I think that it adds so much charm and character, especially in a house like ours that's a 1950s home. I think they are original. They won't open. So eventually we might have to change out the actual windows themselves. But they are stunning, and I found this really, really great custom woven shade. I close it every night to have privacy because obviously it is quite a large window. And so every morning I walk in and just raise it up, and it just makes me really happy to have that natural light come in right away. So that is a big focal point of this room, which brings me to the lamp that everybody on TikTok has fallen in love with. I actually found this in Atlanta. We have the Ballard Design Outlet, and I swear I spend half of my time there. And I actually found this. I'm not sure that they technically go together from a Ballard Design standpoint, but I pieced them together in the outlet and absolutely fell in love with it. It was a big focal point of my previous home, and so when we moved in here, I knew that it needed to be in a place of honor. And obviously from the street, when we go on our walks, we can see it directly from the street. It looks great, and it just takes up a lot of space on this antique table, which I love, having something that's a little bit larger so that I don't have to go crazy styling a table that might be a little bit bigger. So this table is an antique that I found in my hometown in Jacksonville, Florida. I was shopping with my mom and basically knew I needed something in my old home that I could have for years to come, that was simple, easy, and would look great. And this, I just loved the detail of all of the legs, and it was also quite affordable. So at the time, for 25-year-old me, it made a lot of sense, and I have absolutely loved it. It will also come with me in a lot of places, and that is something that pretty much everything you see here outside of the sofas and things, I hope to have forever in our homes. And so when I am buying a piece, I try to find something that I know isn't too odd of a shape, isn't anything too crazy, and that will integrate really nicely as we kind of grow throughout our houses. So The other antique piece in here is from anyone in Atlanta would know. It's called Scott's Antique Market, and it is this beautiful coffee table. I was looking for something exactly like it and really couldn't find anything. And this was an immediate yes when I saw it. It was the perfect size. I feel like it makes a statement, but it's also understated. It's easy to style, but I don't have to go too crazy by putting a ton of books on it. These chairs also came with us. They have been absolutely great. Honestly, I lived alone in my condo for quite a bit, so they didn't get a ton of use when I was living there. And it is funny now because as we've kind of integrated into this home, this has become Neal's spot. So now the chairs are getting quite a bit of use. These pillows my mom gave me for Christmas one year. I had mentioned that I liked them, and they showed up under the Christmas tree, and I have absolutely loved them. I think they bring in all of the tones of the botanical in the art, the kind of green undertones of the cheetah rug, and they're also quite comfortable. Also, a couple notes on top of this, because I absolutely love this little book. So something about me is I like almost everything in our house to have some kind of meaning, as much as it can. Obviously, a sofa can't have endless meaning, but everything we design with, I really like to try to have a meaning. So even this little book that's Momo's Sweet Twins, my niece and nephew, who you'll see scattered throughout the house, it's a little book filled with pictures of my niece, nephew, me, my parents, my sister. I believe Neal made it into this as well. So I like to have something that kind of sparks joy, if you will, scattered throughout. So you'll kind of pick up on that throughout the home. And then these really pretty little candle votives actually came from Carmel, a recent trip we went on. I found a home store. We were there for Neal's brother's wedding, and I shipped probably about 5 or 6 things from that home store. I think I talked to the shop owner for maybe an hour and a half, and they don't have a website, so it was kind of a now or never thing. So as we kind of work our way throughout the house, you'll see a few other things that came from there as well. But I think these are really pretty. I use them, just sitting out here in the evenings, but I also take them out on the patio when we're out there. Something in the past probably couple of years that I realized is that candles, scented candles, branded candles, cost quite a bit of money. And, if you're burning them as frequently as I like to burn candles, it was just not practical. And so I really have recently fallen in love with just buying hurricanes like this one. And so I have them kind of scattered throughout the house. I have a lot of candlestick holders, and pretty much every single night, if we're sitting in here, if we're outside, we're lighting a candle. And obviously this kind of pillar candle lasts a lot longer than a scented fragrant candle. So just a nice little hack that I have found and really fallen in love with, and it allows me to burn candles guilt-free pretty much every evening. And then these sconces over here actually came with the house. This was another selling point when we started looking at the house. I loved this room, obviously, but I loved that each of these candles, or each of these sconces, had a light switch that's independent of the other. I know as long as I had rented and owned a condo, it wasn't the most inexpensive thing to get sconces actually installed electrically. And it was something that I always had really wanted in a house. So this was just a big win in my eyes that we have this. There's nothing overly special about these specific sconces, but this is something that kind of my whole motto with home design is not to rush the process and buy things you actually love, or you'll find out that you just have to replace it because you didn't love it as much as you could. So I am actually currently in the market for vintage sconces, and I don't know exactly what I want them to look like, but I tend to find them and just know right away that that's what I want. So that's on my little to-do list of things to shop for, and probably kind of higher at the top, because I think that's a really fun thing, and it's an easy thing to change out once the electrical is already there. I've always kind of tried to define my home style in one term. And I would say like the TikTok world would call it more like the Nancy Meyers style right now. But I kind of feel like people have kind of missed what the Nancy Meyers tone is. I personally would like to think it's relatively traditional and collected and cozy, but it definitely has like just that collected feel. So I would say collected and cozy, but it's hard to pick one of the like niche terms that people talk about. I want it to stand the test of time. I don't want to have to, you know, in my early 20s, I definitely bought things that were trendier and I had to replace them. And I think it's nice that we can be collecting these pieces that we can have in 20 years, 30 years in our houses. And so definitely I think traditional and classic and just with a little flair.
Luckily, I didn't have to hire a house designer. I decided to just marry one, but I just need to like walk into a store and be like, all right, that room, just like pick that up and move it into my house. So she's very good at handling that stuff for us. And
luckily he does like going to antique stores. He has like a running list of things that he would like me to keep an eye out for at antique stores too. So I think we work well together with it. Welcome to our dining room. This is something that was an immediate yes for me. I loved the chair railing. The trim from the living room carries throughout this space, and I am a huge fan of built-ins. To be honest, they do stress me out a little bit sometimes because I want them to be perfect just about 24/7. So there's often restyling that goes on here. I'm sure anyone with built-ins who has a lot of pieces in them can recognize that feeling. But they just make me really happy. We can put a lot of pieces that have character and memories and can show them off to people. And our house is an 1,800 square foot house and doesn't have a ton of storage because it's from the 50s. And so it also is very practical for us. So something that I really try to keep in mind throughout having kind of a smaller home is to not bring anything in that I don't absolutely love. Honestly, when we did move in here, we had to get rid of a lot of stuff because I did have quite a bit of bookshelves in the old condo. So I really got rid of the things that were maybe purchased at, you know, big box retailers to just stylize my shelf and tried to hone in on things that really meant something to us. So the way I kind of have these styled is, this one is a little bit of our daily use. You know, we use these to bake in. I often, when I have people over, will put a couple bottles of wine that we're planning to drink in here to kind of show we're big wine people. My dad collects wine, and so I like to show what wine we're drinking to our guests. These we use for bread, chips, nuts, kind of anything when we're hosting. These are our table mats that we actually use every single day. And then some vases, and of course some more vases are stored under here. But it is pretty funny when people come over because we do actually use everything that's in our shelves. So when we do host, they're almost empty sometimes. But to me, I think that makes a lot of sense because I don't enjoy just having things that don't have any meaning behind them. I like that it has purpose and that there's a reason that everything is up here. Of course, as we kind of work our way up, we have more of the decor pieces on this side. So we have picture frames of Neal and I, my sister and the twins, of course, again, my parents, Neal and I. Right here we have a picture. I was actually at the birth of my niece and nephew, which tells you just about how much I really, really love them. I think a lot of these pictures came from the condo from when I was living alone. And so we do need to add some more for Neal. But of course we've replaced some. We got engaged about 6 weeks ago now, so we definitely need to add some of our engagement photos, but just haven't quite gotten around to it. So that's kind of the decor side of it. This piece, I'll talk a little bit more about on this side because one thing about travel that I started doing probably when I was 25 is trying to purchase something from each trip. So nothing major, nothing huge, but something to remember the trip by and something that I don't have to ship home. So an interior designer friend actually recommended that I buy bowls. She was like, it's an easy thing to pack. You can put it in your suitcase, you can wrap it up, you can carry it on. And so I kind of started by collecting just handmade bowls on these trips. So this one is from my 30th birthday trip. I went with 5 of my best girlfriends to Harbor Island in the Bahamas and found this in a sweet little shop. And then these are actually the shells that we found on the trip from our boat day when we went out to a sandbar. I think it's a really special thing to be able to bring something home and know exactly where it came from, and then also fill it with something from the trip like this. On this side, I have some more pieces that came from different vacations, different places we've been. This is from Solulita when I went on a bachelorette trip not too long ago. Handmade, really beautiful. And then these are some wine corks. So Momo, that's my aunt name, but also something Neal calls me, Momo's 31st birthday. This one was Neal, Morgan, Katie, and Mitchell with 2 of our friends. We went to another 31st birthday, basically just stock them up in here. Again, wine is something special for my family. And as Neal started being around my family more, he started to experience it. We are definitely guilty for making him into a wine snob, but it's a really fun thing, and it brings our whole family together, and we go to Napa often, and it's just a lot of fun. So always have those. This is a little ice bucket from Neal and I's trip to New York over Christmas this year. Just really cute, pretty. But what's fun about inside of here, this is actually before I had a little bit of disposable income to shop on my trips, I would collect hotel keys. So every trip we went on, instead of necessarily buying something, I would just bring the hotel key home and write a little note. So this one was from Old Edwards Inn, and it was Katie and Mitchell's wedding in 2020. And then Sea Island, this is actually when we got engaged recently, so I need to write on those. And then we have, more wedding. So it's just a fun little thing, and it's an easy thing to collect, and they're small, so might as well. And it's a fun story, as I'm telling everyone now about my friend's weddings. So this piece is really fun. This actually came from the day we got engaged. My mom and my sister gave it to us at my surprise engagement party with friends and family. And it's an ice bucket with my soon-to-be last name, so the McArthurs. And I love it. I've gifted this to a few different friends for their weddings, and so it's fun, full circle, to get my own. So really excited to use it for both wine and also for flowers and just as a vase. So this is kind of a fun little gadget. This was my first present from Neal. It is a juicer. It was a present that definitely benefited him as well, because I make cocktails often with it, mostly palomas and margaritas. And so if I do use this, I'll take basically all of my ingredients from this bar area into the kitchen and build just a really pretty area with flowers if we have friends over, and kind of stylize it. And then obviously it's very practical as well. And I've actually, I think 3 or 4 of my friends have purchased this since I got it. So it is a hit. People love it. And it's fun, and it looks good on the shelves. And then up here is some of my favorite glassware. So I do have a place that I will show that has more glassware, but these are some of my favorites. So these I also got in Carmel at that shop, and I love them. They have this really pretty etching on them. They're actually what brought me into the shop. They were in the window, and I saw them, and I was like, I'm buying those. And turned the corner, they only had 4 of them. So I've kind of now gotten in a habit of, instead of collecting one large set of glassware, I'm actually collecting like 4 pieces of each. So when friends do come over, no one really has a matching cup, but as long as they have a theme throughout, like these have etching as well, I think it works, and it's kind of a fun little quirk to hosting. So between these two, it depends if the drink's pretty. If it's a Paloma, I'll probably put it in a clear one. If it's less pretty, I'll put it in this one. Those actually came from one of our social media clients who I love and still have a great relationship with. It's called 7:30. Also have a few other pieces that are theirs, and everything's handmade in Mexico, and it's absolutely beautiful. This is probably, as you can see in the center of the shelf, this is like my pride and joy. I found it at an antique store, and Neal had been asking me to find a decanter at an antique store while I was out there. And I was so excited to stumble onto this. It is such a unique wine decanter. Obviously it has the silver kind of all throughout it, but it also has this just lid, which We do tend to have to pour it for our guests because they won't hold on to that and it'll just kind of close on them. But everyone that comes over loves it. My dad tried to steal it from me, which meant I had to keep it even more because if he wanted it, I knew it was good. So we did recently gift him something similar, and I'm keeping my eye out for something just like it for him. And then these are actually the little coupe glasses my sister gave me when she asked me to be her maid of honor. So I have broken one. That is the problem with loving glassware, is you can't fall too in love with it, or you'll be heartbroken because you will break some pieces of it. These are some of my favorite. Neal doesn't love them as much because he feels like he's drinking out of a goblet. But I love putting margaritas in these. I think they're really fun, different, kind of the Mexican restaurant feel, but in a really chic way with the etching. Again, they're also handmade from Mexico, so they feel really special to me. That is about it for the bookshelves over here. Let's see, I do have these two pieces that I love and found on a girls' trip to Old Edwards with my mom and my sister and my niece. And I thought they were perfect for a little dining room. They actually worked perfectly in my condo, and that's where I purchased them for. But again, I'm really a big fan of trying to find pieces that work throughout my current home, but that I think will integrate into future homes as well. And so this is a perfect example of, I technically was looking for them for a kind of odd wall in the condo, and they are absolutely perfect here. They bring in the green from the living room. They have that kitchen feel with the fruits, and I love them. We do have the dining room table, which was actually gifted to me in exchange for some social media work back in the day. It's Et2 Home, and I love it. It is exactly what I was looking for, and it matched perfectly with these Ballard design chairs. And then we also have this really pretty upholstered bench that again worked really great in my last place, but I knew it was going to be perfect right here against the window. I just love, I never used to like color. I was in my 20s. I kind of went through that phase of all neutral everything. And then over the past probably 3 or 4 years, I've just started to love muted tones, but still adding colors back in. So I think that this pink is great with the botanicals in the living room. The green obviously correlates with everything. And so even though there's a lot of different colors I didn't necessarily intentionally do here, I think it all works really, really well together. And then this is also the most comfortable thing in the world. And so if I do work from home instead of working in our office, I tend to just sit here where the natural light's coming in, and I know this is very comfortable. And then of course my flowers, these lilacs are stunning right now, but the vase is one of it's from 7:30, which is our client that some of those etched glasses are from, and it's so beautiful, but it also holds all of my flowers really well. I usually kind of stick with the purples or the pinks or the greens to tie in all of the colors from this space. This piece is actually one of the first pieces I bought when we moved into the house. And I knew the light that was here before we moved in wasn't fully my style, and I wanted something that was kind of a focal point. And I love the look of plaster. I've always really loved the look of plaster. And so this was kind of an immediate yes. When I did see it in the store, I knew that it would be a statement, but because it's white, it would blend in nicely with the bookshelves and it wouldn't take away from the built-ins. The one thing that I did recently have updated was adding a dimmer, because it does have a lot of lights in a small space. And so at night, I had gotten to the point where I was just unscrewing light bulbs to dim it manually, essentially. And so we finally hired an electrician and were able to dim it. And I can show you the difference also, because it is really nice in the evenings. When we have people over, it adds that really cozy feel. And I love my candles. I love my dim lights. I never have overhead lights on. So that was a huge win to have that added in, and it really can set the mood and change things around in this space. Welcome to our kitchen. This is where Neal specifically spends most of his time. So we, I guess probably 4 months into dating, I figured out that Neal really had a knack for cooking and that he really, really loved it. I never really spent a lot of time in the kitchen, to be honest. I was always happy to have a small kitchen and just knew we'd throw things in the oven and call it a day. But about 4 months into dating, Neal was like, oh, I'll make us dinner tonight. And it was like homemade pasta sauce. It was this whole elaborate thing. He was in the kitchen for an hour and a half. I toured this house before Neal had a chance to tour it, and I knew that this could be the deal breaker. I walked in and this was the whole kitchen, and I was like, is that going to be enough room for you? And luckily he said yes, and there is room on this side of the kitchen to expand some things, and so we have made it work. It really is a one-person kitchen over here, so we don't cook at the same time, which isn't a problem for me because I'm not helpful in the kitchen at all, and Neal really likes his space. So this, I will kind of walk you through the whole area. Of course, we have my little lamp. This has come from the original condo as well. It was in the little corner in our kitchen, and I just love a lamp in the kitchen. I think it is so cozy. In the evenings, it's all you need on. That and a candle, it just makes me so happy. So even though it takes up a little bit of counter space, it's kind of a non-negotiable for me in a kitchen now. This is really Neal's cooking area. So when he is in here, he is just working back and forth between these sides. So I have built him essentially a little cooking corner. We have his salt, his basil, if we're doing anything with that, that kind of goes in from outside and inside. I'm looking for a really pretty garlic keeper, so I'm in the market for that at an antique store. We are, of course, registering right now, so there's a lot of things that, as someone who didn't cook, I didn't have the supplies that really he needs to do a lot of the recipes that he would like to do. So we're slowly collecting all of those things, and it'll be really fun in about a year once we're married to see what he can do with all of his new kitchen tools. But of course, I make sure it looks pretty and it's also practical, which again serves purpose, because in my old condo, I had a pretty kitchen and I had these things out, but they were essentially props because I didn't cook. So it's really nice to actually know that he will use all of these things. I loved in the kitchen that these are glass, so I can show off some of our dishes. Again, we're registered, so hopefully these will be filled with things that we really, really love here soon. Moving over to this side, these are actually new. Originally, when we moved into the house, there were blinds here and I just didn't love them. So we took those down, and let some of the natural light in. But unfortunately, it also meant that our neighbors could see us at all times, especially when the lights are on in the kitchen. So one of our clients is Lacefield Designs. They do beautiful textiles. And so I got with them and had these made so that at night we can close them, have the privacy, but then in the morning we can open them back up and have that natural light come in. So really happy with how those have turned out. Of course, there's things that I do want to add. I would like to add some plates up here that would be really pretty, maybe from our honeymoon. If we could find some antique plates, that would be really fun. So always evolving in this house. And then over here is all of our cutting boards. And again, it's nice knowing these actually get used versus just sitting there as props like they were in my previous life. Some of them are for me to do cheese boards and just grab. And then of course others are for Neal to actually do prep and cut things with. So it's just a bonus to me that they look really great. Over here we have some of my favorite books that I've either been gifted. This was a really, really sweet gift when we got engaged from a friend who actually took our photos when we got engaged. It's a recipe journal, and she wrote a really sweet note on the inside. We clearly before that had been documenting our recipes on scratch paper, and it was something that Neal kept asking me to look for in an antique store, and I just hadn't found anything that I loved. But she wrote a really sweet letter knowing that we spend a lot of time in our kitchen, and basically wished us well and said we'd probably love having something like this. So for now, we have just enclosed our scratch paper, and eventually we'll probably get to the point where we write them all down. But it is a really sweet thing, and I love having that in our kitchen. So this is the end of the cooking side of the kitchen. And then as we move this way, this is something that we added recently. So we've been in the house, of course, like 5-6 months, and when I did tour it, I knew that this was a blank wall, and I didn't know why necessarily. And it's such an easy extension of the kitchen space. So pretty much upon moving in, I started kind of the works of figuring out who did the counters, who did the cabinetry, and added this in so that we have our trash can, which isn't glamorous, but we didn't have a space for it. And we still have the hardware to add. and then our wine fridge. So something that's important to us, obviously, was to have a wine fridge because we do go to Napa and we do collect some nicer wines that we want to save for years before we drink them. And so we wanted to add that in there. So this is to be determined what use it has daily, but most days and most weekends, this is where I bring my juicer and this is where I set out the flowers. And if we have friends over, there's an appetizer here. And this has become a great place for us to kind of expand on our hosting side of things. Luckily, Neal has stuck with that side as his cooking, so I kind of get to play with this side. It's where I trim my flowers because the trash is right here. So it's come in very, very handy, and we will be adding shelving up here so that we can have some more glassware on display as well. As we work to this side is a work in progress. So this side of the kitchen was pretty much totally empty, and it has our washer dryer. There's nowhere else to put our washer and dryer in the house. So we had to get quite creative with it. So essentially it was a closet in, the 1950s when it was built. And as I assume washer and dryers got bigger, they no longer could put doors on it. So when we bought the house, the washer and dryer was stacked, and we are slowly making a change here, adding a little bistro table and chairs over here, because right now I'm in the living room while Neal cooks, he's in the kitchen, and we have a lot of that back and forth of like, what? So I'm excited for this to be finished so that I can sit here, have a glass of wine while he cooks, have our music playing, and just kind of enjoy this space versus avoid it, which is what we've kind of done thus far. But this piece, I'm also really excited to start paying attention to it again, honestly, because again, this side of the kitchen wasn't used for the first 5 months that we've lived here. And this piece was kind of in a place of honor in my condo. It is a funny story to this because I had been looking for a piece to go in this one little corner of the condo for years. And I wasn't trying all of that hard to find it. But then about 4 months into dating Neal, I was like, I really want to find something. And we went to a bunch of different antique stores, and we walked in one, and I just had a good feeling and stumbled onto this. It was the exact size. It was the exact everything that I was looking for. I loved that it had glass to showcase some of our glass, but then it also had this piece covered so that we can store pieces down here. So like all of our tablecloths, some extra candlestick holders, things like that are all down in the bottom. And it's funny because this is the first piece that Neal probably saw like how giddy I get when I find something that I'm really excited about. Because we brought it home and he was like, sitting in the living room watching football, and I was just sitting in the dining room where this was, just staring at it all night, and was just so happy. So that it's a feeling I can't describe to people who don't get it, because you just get so excited when you find something you've been looking for so long that you'll have for years and hopefully generations. I hope that I have kids that appreciate kind of older pieces as well and want to take on some of this. Up here, this is actually one of my friends gave it to me. People ask about it quite often, but it's actually just from like Aldi. And it was, I think, $2 maybe. And she brought it to me one day and was like, I know you need this. And it's perfect because I have these dried hydrangea stems and they look a little messy in a glass vase. So this has become a one-piece unit. It all works really well together. So it kind of moves around the house seasonally or when I just want to change things up, but I like that it brings some height to this piece. So right now this is where it lives. So that is it for the kitchen, and now we can go out to our back porch. All right, so welcome to our patio. We spend a lot of time out here when the weather allows, of course. This was a huge selling point of the house. As soon as I walked out here, I knew it would be a great place for us to hang out, for Neal to grill, eventually to start a family and have kids up here. So really fell in love with it quickly, but also realized very quickly that it needed a lot of furniture because it's a very large deck. So I knew I kind of wanted to divvy it up into 2 spaces and have kind of our dining area and then also our living space. I was very excited when I found this table for a good price because patio furniture is pretty expensive and it's hard to find. And then I actually found these chairs at HomeGoods, which was a very lucky find, and they're my perfect color. They fit everything for, you know, the inside to the outside with the greenery around. And they also have this really cute scallop on the bottom, and I just love them. They're actually very comfortable and they're easy to clean. So I like that they add a little bit of a pop of color out here versus keeping everything really neutral. Again, I suddenly started liking color in my later 20s and early 30s, so incorporating it to a degree out here. And then the plants, of course, I love collecting planters. I am on a mission to find the prettiest ones. This is all a new hobby for me, planting. We had a tiny little deck at the condo, but not really enough room to actually experiment with, you know, gardening and things like that. This is our first spring in this house, so it's a bit of a learning curve. I'm learning, trying to figure out how to keep things alive and learn how to have a green thumb. It's a little hard here in Atlanta. It's so hot and scorching that some of the plants are hard to keep alive, but luckily both of our parents, my dad and his mom, are pros with their yards and their flowers, so we're getting a lot of good advice from them. But I have just loved to have something on the table, so when we do sit out here, I bring, you know, our placemats and style it and bring candles and then just keep the plants that we have out here. And it just looks really nice, very cozy, very chic, and also with all of the greenery behind. That was something that when we were looking at the house, you really can't see your neighbors at all. You really couldn't see them, and then the day we closed on the house, a giant tree fell, and now you can see them just a little bit, but it's still really nice and private back here, which I have loved. This is my little corner of trying to grow and start a garden. We're trying to start small so that I don't go crazy, but slowly but surely, I really love green. I love lavender. I know lavender's a little hard to kill, so I've been going in that route. It also keeps bugs away. It smells really nice. So this is the start of things. We're gonna try these. This is a little jalapeno plant. I've heard these might be hard. We'll see how it goes, but we thought it'd be fun for cocktails to have our own little jalapenos. We are gonna slowly in our backyard add actual garden beds and try and get that going. So it's gonna be a fun hobby. We both are excited about it. So Neal can do the kind of the manual labor and I can just attempt to keep them alive. So that's kind of it for this dining side. And then moving over to the living room side of things, this is where we spend a lot of our time in the fall, of course, and spring, summer. I'm sure it'll get hot. We're gonna get a few umbrellas out here as well. But it's so nice during the fall to sit here, watch football. Neal will make appetizers. I'll make it look all pretty and just enjoy the nice weather. Neal, of course, is a chef, if you will, and so he loves the grill as well. He is pretty much, and when it's nice weather, he wants to be out here grilling. So I tend to kind of park over here with a glass of wine and some good music playing, and he'll just kind of go in and out of the house doing his grill thing. And it's really been just very, very enjoyable and nice. So this sofa is actually Ballard design, and as soon as I saw it, I was in love with it. I thought it was perfect. A little bit unique for patio furniture, but still quite neutral and pretty. And then, of course, this is the matching chair that they're just so comfortable and easy. They're white, which, you know, a little risky, especially in Atlanta with pollen season and things like that. But of course, we cover them at night and really don't have a ton of issues there. So it's just been so great. These chairs over here are actually from my condo, but slowly gonna keep adding this style furniture out here. We'd kind of like to have 2 sofas for when we do have guests over. We love hosting, so this is really kind of the area when we are hosting that we spend most of our time, when it's nice weather, of course. So welcome to our cozy den area. This is where we spend a lot of our time in the fall and winter, as we've realized, because there is a fireplace down here. So this is technically a finished basement. And when we did look at the house for the first time, I fell in love with this room. It was green walls, so it felt a little dark when I first toured it, but I knew painting it white would brighten up the space a ton and make it feel less basement, but still have that really cozy feel to it. So it's funny because this is the room that I convinced Neal would be his room. And he took that as like he could hang his like Michael Jordan posters and things down here. He learned quite quickly that that wasn't going to be the case. But of course, I do want to keep him in mind while I'm doing all of the things, even though he trusts and loves everything that I do. I do want to make it obviously feel like his home and have things that are special to him as well. So this is the wall that is both of ours. We both have special things on here, but it has a lot of our kind of sentimental pieces. So it has, Neal's grandmother gave him this. He's an Arkansas fan and think it's really cool. I initially thought we might frame it, but I kind of like it. I like the texture of, the fabric on there. So we ended up just doing a nail and piecing it up there. And then he has a few Cardinals newspaper clippings. He went to these games. I can't speak to what all was happening with these, but I know they're really special to him. So he's carried them on for years. So wanted to make sure they had a place that felt really special for him. And then I actually have kind of the next pieces. So my grandpa played football at Tennessee in the, I guess it would be the 50s, 54-ish. And it has really defined a lot of our family and our falls especially. I went to Tennessee. My parents met at Tennessee. Both my parents were from Tennessee. So even though I grew up in Florida, I was always a big Tennessee football fan. But even more than just the fandom, it's always been very special to us because, my grandpa, I was close with him until he died. And it just is a really special way for our family to spend time together. So I actually have a newspaper clipping of him. I have a few more that I haven't gotten framed yet, but one of his, I guess, team photos from when he was at Tennessee. He was number 17, so 17 is a very special number to us. I also have his hat that is from the Atlanta Olympics when him and my grandma lived here. And so when he did pass, my grandma told us we could kind of walk through the house and take anything we wanted to. And I naturally saw that this was Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta. It has a ton of wear and tear. He's definitely worn it a lot. You can see sweat marks, everything, but I knew that hanging it on the wall would be really special. And I love, from a design standpoint, I love the two textures pieces from our grandparents. Neal was also very, very close with his grandma. And so just a special thing to have. And then I have here also, when Tennessee finally beat Alabama, I was there with my 3 best friends and we were sitting together and it was a huge win for us. And it was my best girlfriends from college. And it was a really fun game, of course, but also special to be there with them. And so my grandma sent me this and I saved the newspaper and got it framed as well. So this is really special. This is the newest edition. This is actually the letter that Neal wrote when he proposed to me. So when he proposed, he had the letter. He's a crier, so he knew he wasn't going to be able to say all of this when he proposed. So we walked out. We were at Sea Island. We walked out on the lawn, and he handed me the letter. And of course, then it made me be the crier. So I read the letter, and then at the end it says, I'm proposing, and look down, he's on a knee. And I just think I guess I never really thought of a proposal letter. And so when afterwards, I was like, we have to frame this. I think it's so special and so cool and something that we can pass down to our children, in the future. That'll be a really, really cool thing. So I think it's amazing. And we debated putting it somewhere a little more private, like in our bedroom or wherever it was. But, I think it's a special thing to have hanging in the house that other people can see as well. So on a little bit less of a sweet note, but still special, is 2 pictures that Neal has from Arkansas. That, of course, again, this is kind of his sports room, as I call it. So wanted to incorporate that. And then really the goal for this wall is to just continue to fill it up with special moments. So now that we're together for a lot of these things, we would be together at this Tennessee game, we'd be together at all these, we can start filling it up with things that are special to both of us, which I think is really neat. So kind of planning to fill this whole wall as things happen, in no rush, obviously, because we want it to be very special. So moving on to this side of the room, this room actually has a full bathroom as well. So although our house is a 3-bedroom house, technically this could be considered a 4th. So as soon as we moved in, I knew I wanted to get a pull-out couch down here, but I was a little hesitant on what it would look like and the process of getting it. So we kind of looked online for a while, and then I ended up finding this at the Crate and Barrel outlet in Atlanta. And we haven't had anyone need to stay on it yet because we do currently have a full guest room. But it's going to be very, very handy, I know, especially as we start to have kids and things like that. I think we will definitely have guests taking advantage of this. And the nice thing is it is also a very comfortable sofa. So again, something that's very practical for a smaller home, but also looks great with design elements. So wanted, again, another neutral kind of base here. This room is something that I wanted to think about Neal a little bit more than some of the other rooms because I knew we would be hanging out in here, and we were also buying furniture for this room versus the living room. And something that he really wanted down here was a sectional. It is a small room. There was really no way we were going to fit a large sectional down here. The only way in, because the staircase is kind of a spiral little thing, is through this door, and it was hard enough to get this sofa in. So my kind of compromise with him was to find a really comfortable ottoman, and this is absolutely exactly what I was looking for. I was so excited when I found this because it's on wheels, so we can literally scooch it up and it feels just like a sectional and like can lounge out with the fire and watch TV. But it also is very up my alley aesthetically, and it looks great in here. So that was a win for both of us. And I also have always wanted to have kind of a fabric sectional so I can take advantage of having a tray. And this tray, it's a mandolin Lindroth. It's beautiful. It has glass on it, so it's really practical for down here. If we have drinks or whatever, we can always use it. And then of course I can style it really pretty. So I have this little vase with, flowers. Obviously don't have flowers, cut flowers down here all the time, but have some kind of greenery, whether it's an orchid or something in here. And then I love using little vintage trays as little, basically places for matchboxes throughout the house. So you see them throughout, but in here I think this one's really cute. And it's nice, instead of having to run up and down every time I forget something, I try and kind of stock us with the stuff that we do need. So again, we have the candlesticks with the candles that are easy to replace and use frequently. So we pretty much have those lit every time we're down here, which I love. Moving on to this side of the space. This is one of my absolute favorite corners of the house. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, it was meant to be. Like when I bought this when the twins were born in Nashville. I got an apartment up there because I wanted to be so close to them, and they didn't really have space for me to be visiting all the time. And I needed not much furniture. It was a little studio, but I needed a little bit of furniture in there. And so I went to this store in Nashville called Patina & Co. They have absolutely amazing pieces that are rather affordable. And I found this, and it was my TV stand there. And I knew that even though I was only doing like a 6-month lease, I knew that I would bring this to a future home because I think it is just so beautiful. So when I walked in here and I was like, oh, what would go in those corners? I was like, that table would be perfect. I'm going to go measure it. And I measure the two, and I was like, it's going to fit like a glove. And so it did. And I call this like our little bourbon bar. It's not fully done yet, but this is kind of where I picture having just the bourbon that Neal can just pour a glass of bourbon, and kind of that cozy din bourbon vibe in here. And then of course we have all of my matchboxes that have been collected over the years. I collect way too many, so I kind of have to just keep these to the side because I would fill a giant jar with them. But I do think these are really pretty. I love topping it with this one. This is from the house we rented at Harbor Island for my 30th birthday. They had their own matchboxes, which I thought was a really cool idea for guests to take. So that one's really fun to kind of keep at the top. But this, I love this. I think it'll evolve. I think it's going to continue to be my favorite spot. And these, I just think, are a perfect addition to it as well. And this all came from my previous condo, and it just fit perfectly. So love that area. And then of course our fireplace. I was just honestly excited that we even had a fireplace, but the fact that it was in a room this cozy made me really happy. So Neal loves a wood burning fireplace. So I never make a fire. If it was gas, I would just turn it on all the time. But I pretty much wait for him to kind of get it all set up. And it's nice because that way we're always kind of spending time down here when there is a fire. He'll make it, and then he'll go upstairs, make dinner, we'll go eat, we'll come back down, watch a movie. And it just truly is the coziest room. I don't think we initially planned to call this a den. And then once we started spending time here and realizing how cozy this room really is, we were like, this is a den for sure. So this is why we really spend our fall and winter down here more than we do spring, summer, because we're kind of out on the deck during that part. But I did have to make the decision, and I think a lot of people would be happy about this. I had to decide when we painted this room if I wanted to paint the fireplace. I love red brick. When red brick looks great, it's cannot be beat. So I wanted to keep it red. I think it adds like a cozy element to it, and then obviously just kind of painted the white around it. So love this corner. And then over here is just one other chair, which actually was initially a pair. The other one is at our office, our agency's office. And this is kind of a temporary hold a little bit for me because I know we want to do something really neat over here, but it kind of comes back to that whole not rushing thing. And I know when I see it, whether it's at an antique store or I see inspiration somewhere, I know I will know what we're going to do here. So kind of just have this in case we have more guests down here, but really excited to see what comes of this over the next few years. And then really the last piece over here, we have a couple, it's kind of hard to see, but it's another thing that just fit like a glove. I needed a like 12-inch coffee table or end table right here. And I happened to go to an antique store and stumble upon this, and it's a marble top, and it's absolutely the perfect size for right here. So that was just one of those things that was meant to be. And then this lamp, which I can actually kind of pick up, was actually my Christmas present from Neal this year when we were in New York. We stumbled into a beautiful store, and I said, I love that lamp. It was an antique, and I was like, I love it. I'm already buying. I think I bought 3 other things in there. I was like, I'm already buying these, and he was like, we'll make it a Christmas present. And so they shipped it, because obviously I couldn't check that one, but they shipped it, and I just think it's really neat, again, tying back to vacations and places that we've been and everything, kind of having memories together that, you know, it lives here for now, but eventually it might live in a kid's room, or it might live, you know, wherever it goes. I think it'll be fun to remember that story of going to New York together for Christmas time. Personally, home is where I just feel cozy and happy and at ease. I think it means a place where we can entertain and make memories. I would like to never leave our home. If we could do everything we wanted here, I would never see a reason to leave. So to me, it's where we can really build memories and, you know, start our lives together and finish lives together too.
Yeah, I mean, I think like home is a place where you can kind of have a little bit of everything. You know, it's your place to rest and relax. Mm-hmm. It's your place to, you know, raise a family one day. It's your place to entertain and have fun. So yeah, I think that's what a home is meant to be.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.